Okay, so welcome. This is the Premier Chess for Winter 2021 Adult Rookie Class. And we're going to look at an examination of pins. What are pins and how different grandmasters and top players have used pins in the past.
Mhm.
So, okay. So, the first question I'm going to ask you is what is a pin?
Uh, a pin is where you, for example, in this case, you'd want to place the bishop at d4,
Very good.
which would pin the knight to the king, which I think is what they call an absolute pin, because
Very good.
if it was a queen or a rook,
Yeah.
the, you could move the knight, but you'd risk losing the other piece.
Ye-
Whereas in this
right.
case, you can't move at all.
And do you know what that kind of pin is called when you can move it? When you
Um,
so this would be an absolute pin. Yep. And
yeah,
and what's the other type?
I want to say relative, but
Very good. Relative pin. Yeah. So absolute and relative pin. Two types of pins. Very good. Okay. So let's go on. So again, this would be an absolute pin. The knight cannot move.
yeah.
So what do you think the best move here for white is? What do you think?
For white.
Yep. Best move for
Uh,
white here. What do you think?
uh Would probably pawn f4.
Yeah, F4. So there's a way to describe this particular maneuver. There's a website called chesskid.com, and the way they describe it to kids is you got to put PP on the PP. So put pressure on the pinned piece, right? So the knight
uh,
cannot move anywhere, right? The knight is completely pinned and is stuck. So therefore, pile on pressure, right?
right.
Move to F4. Now the pawn is attacking the knight, and you will win the knight, right? So
Mhm,
very simple strategy there. Yeah, PP on the PP. Very good. Okay,
mhm.
so now white to move. What do you think here? What do you think? Any ideas?
Uh, Trying to look for a pin, but
Mm-hmm.
um,
So it's all on the topic of pins.
um,
You want me to give you a hint?
yeah.
So in this position, um, there's one of Black's army that's pinned. What do you think? Which one is it?
Um, oh, I see. The the G pawn um, is basically pinned by the white queen, so
Yep.
I could do bishop to f. 6.
Yeah, very good. So the queen is definitely pinning the pawn to the king. Therefore, the pawn
Can't. Yeah.
cannot perform its function
Uh-huh.
of defending h6 or f6. Therefore, the knight is basically free. So we capture the knight, and the pawn cannot take back, and you win the knight for free. So very nice. And at the same time, we're threatening mate
Right.
on g7, right? So very
Yeah.
nice. Okay, good. Now
I was I
here.
was I was thinking that I had to create the pin. I didn't realize the pin was already there.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, so this whole class today it's just on the general theme of pins. So
Right.
they come in different each position is unique, right? So
Right.
all has to do with pins. So what do you think here? On the theme of pins, what's the best move?
White's move.
Yeah, white's move.
Oh, okay.
Any ideas? What do you think?
Well, um, knight to F or knight to G5. Oh no, it's
Okay, so knight g5. All right, so let's look at that. So, first of all, what happens if the knight takes the knight?
and the rook. White rook would take the rook on E8, but
Good. So yeah, so how many times would we be attacking the rook on e8?
um, twice.
Good. Two times. And how many times was black defending?
Um, just once.
Just once. Yeah, so we would win a rook. So basically we would give up our knight but win a rook, so we would win the exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that'd be a very good exchange. So what if knight takes g5 and what if the rook takes instead? Then what do we do?
Mm. The rook on E5. 5 could take the black rook because the knight's pinned
Very good. The
by
knight
the other
takes.
white.
Yeah, and now the rook's not protected at all, right?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. All right, so let's look at that. So yeah, the very nice knight g5 exploiting the pin on the e8 rook. Very good. Very good. Okay, good. Next. Okay, so black to move. What is the best move here? What do you think?
Uh, oh, um, Uh, rook to h3.
Okay, so rook takes h3, and can the queen take the rook?
No, it's pinned by the
Good.
black queen.
Good. So that exposes a pin by the black queen on the white queen. Um, and that's actually a pretty great position because the the rook is unprotected, but the queen cannot take.
Right,
The queen is unprotected, but the queen doesn't have time to take our queen. Why? Because he's in check, right?
right.
So that's a very nice exploitation of a pin. Very good. All
Uh-huh.
right. So now, um, king to g1. And now what's the best move here? Any ideas? One hint?
I was looking at the bishop, but I don't see a.
Yeah, so still in the theme of pins, there's another, black's got
Yeah,
another good move here.
black hasn't moved, right?
Oh, yeah, black has a good
Yeah.
move here.
Uh,
You want a hint? What do you think?
yeah.
All right. So in this position, um, this bishop. So remember, every move is a new puzzle, right? So now
Right,
the king is now back onto g1. So now we
right.
have to look at the position again. What has changed, right? Now the king is in line with the
Oh,
bishop
yeah.
on c5, right? So how can we exploit that?
The hmm. Hmm. Well, if the rook moves to g3,
Mm-hmm.
the pawn can't take the rook,
Very
and
good.
the black pawn is protecting the rook.
Very good. So yeah, so the pawn looks like it's protecting g3, but in fact it's not
Not
because of the pin by the bishop. So rook
yes.
g3 would actually pin the queen to the king, winning the queen, right?
Uh-huh.
Very nice. Rook g3 is the answer. There you go. Very good. Very nice use of pins there. Very good.
Yeah,
Okay, good. So let's go on to another one. All right, so you got that, that. All right, good. So that'll be a relative pin, right? Pin against the queen.
yeah.
Okay. Again, here we want to put pressure on the pin piece, right? So we go F6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now here, what do you think is the best move for white here? What do you think?
Uh, Rook to H6.
Rook to H6. Yeah, so now can the pawn take the rook?
No.
No, pinned by the bishop on B2. Can the king escape onto G8?
No.
Because the bishop, right? Very good.
Right.
So that is mate.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of that type of mate? There's a special name.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it? Have you heard of it? No.
I don't remember. I think I want to say in what I've read and stuff that they talk. I remember saying something about it, but I don't recall.
Yeah, it's called either the Anastasia's mate or the
Oh.
corridor mate.
Oh. Okay.
Right? So it's basically the exact same thing as a back rank mate, which would be a mate
Right.
on either the eighth rank or the first rank. So the corridor mate is a mate either on the H file or the A file,
Oh. Okay.
right? So this is a mate uh, where the two squares are blocked off and the king cannot escape, and so
Mhm.
therefore it is mate, right? Very good. All right, very good. Let's look at this one. Okay, so now this one, I'm going to add a little caveat on this one, um, because I know it's white to move here, right? It's white
Yeah.
to move, and I know that the queen is free, right? The queen is not protected. So, if I were to just say what's the best move, obviously taking the queen would be the best move, right? But
Yeah.
I'm going to say, imagine that there's a rook here on f6 protecting the queen.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So then the queen would not be free. Okay.
Right.
So if there's a rook on f6, what's the best move for white here? So white has a much better move than just capturing the queen because that would just
Yeah.
be a queen trade, right? So what do you think is the best move here for white with the rook on f6?
Rook to F1 would.
Okay, so you go rook to f1. Now maybe he can just trade queens and maybe trade rooks, and then its position is basically drawn or equal, right?
Yeah.
So we want a better move than that. What do you think?
Yeah.
Better move.
Mhm.
Want me to give you a hint?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember what we said before about pin pieces. What do you do to pin pieces?
Oh, you
What do we do?
put more pressure.
Put pressure on the pin piece, right? So which
Yeah.
piece in this position is pinned? Yeah, which piece is pinned in this position?
The black queen is
The
pinned.
black queen is pinned to the king, right? The queen
Right.
cannot move from this diagonal, cannot leave this diagonal.
Right.
So therefore, the queen is pinned. So what can we do about that? What do you think?
Want to add pressure.
Add pressure. So what do you think?
Rook to D1.
Very good. Rook to D1. So now the rook is adding pressure. Now, um, the queen, of course, cannot take the rook because he can't leave the diagonal. So,
Right.
what if the queen captures our queen on G3? Then what do you do? Best move.
Um, Rook to D8.
Is what?
Mate.
Checkmate. Yeah, very good. So basically, this puzzle combines two things, right? So rook d8 is put pressure on the pinned piece, and the queen being pinned. Now the queen is forced to capture here, and now we go rook d8. So now, really, the rook um, was, you can call this a skewer, right? Are you familiar with a
Right.
skewer? Yeah.
Yeah.
So a skewer is you're going through a piece and you want to go to somewhere else. Now, it could be that you want to capture a piece that's behind it, or in
Right.
this case, you're skewering the queen because you want to arrive at d8 square,
Yeah.
right? So queen takes, and now that exposes the d8 square, which is a mating square, right? Rook
I've
d8.
seen some puzzles where you have to you want to mate the king, but there's a piece that's protecting the square you want to go to.
Yeah,
You have to lure it off the
right.
square.
Yeah, yeah, that's another tactic, decoy or deflective sacrifice. That's a different tactic. But yeah, so this would be exploiting a pin, putting pressure on the pin
Yeah.
piece, and skewering this d8 square. This is a valuable
Right.
d8 square that you want to arrive at. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's go on. Am I going too fast or too slow, or
No.
this is good? Okay. Okay, so here, there's a bunch of pins here. Now I'm going to ask you, what's the best move for white here? What do you think? Best move for white? What do you think? Best move for white here? Any ideas?
Um, well, I was looking at rook to E1.
Okay, so rook to e1, check, and then maybe the king escapes to f8. So there's a much better move than that. Much
Yeah.
stronger move. What do you think? Although it's good that the first thing you look at when you look at, what's the best move, you always look at checks first, right? So rook e1 is a good
Yeah.
thing to look at, but there's a stronger move. So what are other checks you can look for? What do you think?
A
So look
rook
at all
to
look at all the checks.
what's that?
Look at all the checks first.
Oh,
Yeah. You want a hint? What do you think?
Yeah, I thought about the. I was thinking, rook to D1, which would, but it's not a check.
Yeah, so rook d1 is not a check. Therefore, that allows white to start harassing. Oh, sorry, black to start harassing
Uh-huh.
white. We can go
Right.
check here and then pick up this bishop. So,
Right.
so yeah, we want to be strong. Now you
We
know how
want
to
to for yeah, we want to move that'll force the opponent to do what.
strong moves. Yeah. So what do you think
Yeah.
here? So look at other checks.
Queen C6.
Queen c6 check. All right. Okay, that is a check. But there is just a better move here. So first of all, one thing you look at is checks, right? Another thing you can look at is which of my opponent's pieces are not protected. So out of all the black's pieces here, which one do you think is not protected?
Um, the queen's not
The
protected,
queen's not protected. Okay. What else?
and the knight's not protected.
The knight's not protected. Anything else?
Uh, the bishop's protected by the queen,
Yeah.
or
So yeah, that's about it. The queen and the knight. Now, out of those two, can you capture either one of them? Which one can you capture?
we can capture the knight with the bishop
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
and still check the king.
Very good. So that's the strong move, right? Because that's a free piece. It's not protected, and it's
Right.
also check, right? Very good.
Yeah.
That would be the best move here. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, good. So let's go on to the next. Okay, relative pin. All right. This is absolute pin. Very good. Okay. All right, here. What is the best move for white here? What do you think? Best move for white.
Uh,
White to move. What do you think?
Bishop C4.
Bishop c4. What does that do?
It it pins the queen to the king.
Very good. Bishop c4 pins the queen to the king, and the queen will be lost, right? The queen cannot
Right.
escape this pin anywhere, right? Because you can never put yourself in check, right? So the queen
Yeah.
is lost. Very good. All right, good job. Let's go to the next one. Now, what do you think? White to move here. What do you think? Best move.
Uh,
What do you think? Any ideas?
uh, bishop to g5.
Bishop g5. Yeah, so bishop g5 pins the knight to the rook. And what kind of pin would this be?
Relative.
Relative pin. Now, is there anything that black can do to save his knight?
Not that I can see.
No, he cannot protect this knight anymore. Now, let me ask you this. What if black went knight e4, attacking the rook and the bishop simultaneously? So what do you think would be white's best move here?
I think rook to b3.
Ah, rook b3 check. Okay, that's good too. Rook b3 check. Maybe he goes here. Then you take the rook. King takes back. So now it's a rook against a knight, which would be winning for white. It's just going
Right.
to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Another way you could have done that is you can just take the rook immediately, because now if he takes your rook, you take back, and now you're ahead an extra bishop, and
Uh-huh.
he has nothing, right? He just
Right.
has pawns, and that will be a little bit easier to win,
Right.
right? So yeah, all right, good, good, okay, all right, um, all right. So let's go on. All right, here, what's the best move for white? What do you think? Best move for white here? What do you think?
I think queen g7.
Queen G7. Okay, so good. So that's the answer. But now let me ask you this: why did you not pick Queen H7? Is there any reason why you didn't pick that one?
I what g7. I was pinning both the knight and the bishop.
Yeah, very good. So Queen H7 only pins the bishop, right? Which can easily
Yeah.
be blocked, or sorry, protected, and the pin can be broken with Rook C7, right? So in chess, if we can do, you only have one move at a time, right? So if
Right.
you can make each move perform multiple functions, right, or achieve multiple goals,
Yeah.
that's going to be much better, right? So Queen G7 is very good in that it pins the bishop to the king as simultaneously pinning the knight to the rook, and it turns out that black cannot save both at all, right? So either he saves his bishop and he loses his knight, or he saves his bishop here and loses his rook here,
Mhm.
right? So there's no way that he can save both, right? So very good move, Queen G7. Good. All right. Next one, white to move. What do you think here? Good move here.
Knight g6.
Knight G6, and what is that?
Mate.
Mate. Yeah, very good. Knight G6. The queen cannot take because the queen is pinned to the king. What type of pin is that?
Absolute.
Absolute pin. Yeah, the queen cannot move. It's against the rules. Knight drops in, and with the help of the king, which removes the squares H7, G7, the knight delivers a checkmate on the king.
Right.
Very good. Very beautiful there. Okay. All right. So this is white to move. What is the best move for white here?
Rook E8,
Yeah, rook e8. And what's that?
mate.
Rook e8 is mate. Yeah, the bishop is pitting the rook, so the rook is immobile, cannot move down, protect the king, and therefore rook e8 is a back rank checkmate. Right? Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, good job. Okay, so now here, white to move. What do you think best move here for white?
Knight B5.
Okay, so if we go knight b5, that's a check, and the king can escape on b6. So we need a stronger move than knight b5,
Oh,
right? Any idea?
oh, knight D5.
Knight d5. So what's the difference with knight d5?
The knight's covering the escape square on B6.
Right, right. So can the pawn take the knight?
No.
No, pinned by the queen, and the eighth rank is blocked off by the rook. So the knight delivers a nice check from d5 at the same time as controlling b6. And so therefore knight d5 is mate, right? Very, very nice mate there. All right, good, good. Okay, so let's do a few these are grandmaster games, top level
Uh,
games, using the idea of pins. So this one comes from the World Championship, Alexander Alekin versus Jose Raul Capablanca. Are you familiar with those players?
yeah.
Yeah. So this is white to move. Alekin is black. Capablanca is white. Sorry, the other way around. Alekin's white. Capablanca is black. And it's white to move. So what is the best move for white here? What do you think? Best move for white.
Rook C1.
Okay, so rook c1, it looks like a good move because the rook cannot move, right? The queen would be lost. The problem is, if we go rook c1, what's the best move for black? What's the best move for black here? So black can successfully extricate himself from this pin. Rook c1 is not a good move. Why is that?
Uh,
You want a hint?
If the black, if the well, see the black rook take the white rook on c1,
Mm-hmm.
then the white queen would take the rook.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So if the black rook takes on c1, can the queen take the queen?
yeah,
Can the queen take the queen? What do you think?
uh, yeah. There's nothing protecting it.
Nope. The queen cannot the b2 queen cannot take the black queen. Do you see why? If
Oh, you can. Yeah, the
yeah, we're in check, right?
check.
Very important. That's very important. The fact that we're in check now that allows black to get rid of this pin, and now the position is very much equal now, pretty
Yeah,
equal, right? So we
yeah.
don't want to allow uh we don't want to allow our opponent to extricate himself from this pin.
Right.
Therefore, what's the better move here? What do you think?
Believe it or not, my first thought was pawn c6, but I don't. I don't see anything worth
Yeah,
moving the.
c6 doesn't do much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a productive move. There's a productive move here that white can do to prepare to exploit the pin.
Pawn f4.
Okay, so f4. So now this does a few things which we're gonna see later on. So f4 is the move that he played. Queen drops back to g7. Now, what's the best move here? What do you think? Any ideas?
You want to maintain the pin, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. This pin is very valuable for
Yeah.
white, right? You definitely want to maintain. So how do we um, increase pressure and exploit? What do you think? The pin.
I was thinking bishop e4.
So capturing the knight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a necessary first step because again, we cannot do rook c1 yet.
Right.
Why? For the same reason, right? It's going to
Same
be
way. Yeah.
check. So what we need to do is we want to do rook c1 eventually.
Yeah.
The problem is it's check. So what do we need to do? We need to get our king
King.
out of the first rank, right?
Right.
The problem is the knight is controlling f2,
Right.
right? Also, the
Yeah.
knight adds additional support to the rook on c3. So both of those reasons lead white to believe that taking the knight is a good move, which it is. Bishop takes e4. D takes e4. Now, best move here.
I was thinking knight, or excuse me, rook d1.
Rook d1. Okay. Um, there's actually a better, more productive move. Although that is good in the sense of controlling the d file.
Yeah.
But there's actually a better, more productive move than that. What is it? What do you think? So what was the reason that we played bishop takes e4?
Get, well, I did played it to get the black pawn off the d file.
Okay, so the black pawn did, come off the d file. D file is open, but there was a reason that we removed the knight, right? What was the knight doing? The knight was
Oh,
doing,
it's protecting the black rook.
okay, the knight was protecting the rook. It was also doing something else. What was it doing?
Um,
Remember, what was our original plan that we want to do? But
Capture
we,
the queen.
well, our original plan, well, so in this position, look at this position. So the rook is pinned, right? So
Yeah.
what do we do with pinned pieces,
Right.
right?
Uh,
So you want to, we put pressure, right, on the pinned
yeah.
piece. So can we do it now? Was this a good time to do it?
Yeah. No, I think so.
It's the same reason. We're going to be in check,
Oh,
right? If he takes the rook,
oh,
so
that's right. Yeah.
he gets out of it. So the problem, the perennial problem we're having here is that rook c1 doesn't work just yet because it's going to be a check on our
Oh,
king once he captures. Therefore, what should we do?
move the king
To where?
to f2 now.
F2. Yeah. Now the king goes to F2. Now we are threatening rook C1, right? So
Yeah.
now black responds with queen F6. And now what do you think is the best move here? What do you think? Best move here.
I would think the rook to c1
Yeah.
because if
So let's see now. Rook C1. Does this work? Now, it's true that the rook takes C1 is not check, but this doesn't work because queen can drop down to
uh,
H4, deliver a check,
uh,
and now the rook is no longer pinned. And
right.
even if he blocks with G3, that would be an even worse move. Why? What can black do here?
Uh, well, black could take the pawn on h2.
Exactly. Now we're going to win the
Oh,
queen, right?
yeah.
So, so maybe he just goes here to king e2, and then we take the rook, and now this is just a draw, right? So
Yeah.
you got to be careful. There's still tricks.
Yeah.
So he's threatening to come down to h4. So what should black do? What should white do before playing rook c1? What do you think?
Pawn G2,
G3, right?
B3. I mean, yeah.
G3, yeah. Okay, good. So now we are threatening. Now this is a legitimate threat on c1. So what does black do? He hurries his king over. He tries to get to e7 to protect his queen so that he can move his rook. Unfortunately, he is one move too late. King e7, and then queen takes c3. The rook is lost, and it's basically game over. White
Mm,
wins here, right? So very nice use of a pin there, exploiting the pin. Right,
mm,
very good. So yeah, that's the lecture on pins.
mm.
Hope you enjoyed it. Hope
Yeah, it
you
was
learned.
good.
Oh, you have any
I
questions?
no, I one of the things I really like to do is I have some books on mate and twos,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I, I didn't realize how I thought mate and two, how hard could it be? But it's
Yeah,
not as easy as I thought it was. But
yeah,
I enjoy doing them.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's great. Yeah, it's always good to do the exercises, and yeah, Lichess has great puzzles that you can do, and the puzzle storm. I don't know if you tried that, the puzzle storm function. It's really fun.
And oh no, in Lichess,
Yeah, Lichess, they got this
yeah,
new puzzle function called Puzzle Storm. It's really cool.
uh-huh.
And it's kind of like, are you on chess.com?
I've bought it a few times, not very much. So
Okay, because they have Puzzle Rush,
right,
and it's very similar to Puzzle Rush. On
uh-huh.
Lichess, they just call it Puzzle Storm. So yeah, yeah, those puzzles are really good, along with
Yeah,
playing some games as well. I definitely
yeah,
recommend playing people over computers. I think
right,
people is much better.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely play some people. And yeah, slowly get better.
yeah,
So yeah, it's great to meet you,
yeah,
Leonard. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So Evan should be back next week
Okay.
with another lesson. I assume that Susan and Randy maybe they just took Valentine's Day off,
Maybe,
and
yeah,
you had like a private lesson here, which
yeah,
is nice.
yeah,
So yeah. All right. So great talking to you.
yeah.
So
Nice talking to you.
hope you have a wonderful night.
You too.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.